So our critique now is Justin Walker Tattoo, a professional tattoo artist, Blind Tiger Tattoo Company. Let's see what he got. So Justin sent me um, some actual colored line drawings, which I really appreciate, instead of actual finished tattoos. So this is going to be a lot of fun to be able to go through these. This first one is this parrot design. Excuse me real quick. All right, so my initial thoughts, the tattoo has a great flow. This is a really good, fun rendering of a parrot. It's got a very cool sort of 70s color scheme going on with it. Um, Let me pull up a decent pencil here. So looking at the actual silhouette itself, as you can see, the silhouette's an interesting dynamic shape. It's great. There's no really odd blank spaces. Um, he's used these flowers here to kind of cover what would be an odd dead space, um, or in kind of a space that someone would have to deal with later. And they're a nice counterbalance to the parrot itself. Um, Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of how pointy this area of these wings get. These bottom ones I like better than the top as far as those are concerned. Also the base of the tail, um, I'm sorry, not the base of the tail. Uh, the ending of these tail feathers right here. What I would say is I would suggest varying the outer texture of the wings and the base of the tail and the tail feathers. Um, so I would probably work just to make these kind of thicker than what they are. Maybe even a little bit more. That feels good. This part, same sort of deal. This little empty space up in here, I'd probably have that taper into a point. And yeah, I like that sort of shape better. Let's see, that versus, geez, versus that. Okay, so the next, um, my only real thing outside of that, I'd probably also have these be just a little bit more flowy than they are. Like, don't be afraid to kind of really allow these to get kind of curly at the end there. Again, for all of you guys, this is really very much about like taking a look at every element within a tattoo and thinking of how we can develop everything. You don't want to have anything within a tattoo that looks like you just kind of threw that in there. You can get away with that kind of stuff in paintings, I feel like. But tattoo designs itself, like every element of it really needs to be well thought out and thought about how everything interacts with each other. So yeah, I like that. I feel like that ends up varying a lot of what you have going on uh, between this batch of feathers and then this batch of feathers and then this batch of feathers. Like they all kind of differentiate from each other now. Um, and I like how that blends down into a black on the end of these feathers. I think that would be a good idea to do that. Um, so my other real thought with it in regards to the way that the tattoo is approached is that every element in this piece is high contrast. Um, Down to like every single little row of feathers is high contrast. It's definitely um, it's definitely a retro look that reminds me of JD Crow Flash, and maybe that's what you were going for. I don't really know. But my personal preference is to have certain parts of the tattoo itself that are high contrast, and then other things that are lower. So when it comes to the yellow, I would lose the brown entirely in the yellow, especially since you have that line that you're running in the middle of the yellow feathers. I think you get away with just the yellow by itself really well. So it's like really, especially when it comes to traditional work, do not be afraid to make some stuff flat. It took me years and years and years to get the boldness to just allow some stuff to just be, for it to be, nice and flat. Just it ends up having a strong, bold kind of look. Obviously not everything, but flatness is definitely like a flat, solid area is definitely a strong thing that you can use in your pieces. Okay. So then I would also lose the black shading in the leaves. Um, considering that that's good green, considering that these flowers are sitting in front of the parrot, I feel like you could get away with having these just very pure, just brights. I would suggest probably even going a little lighter with that green. Let's get a color wheel up here. You know what? We'll just do this. Do that. Pull it a little bit more towards more yellow. Maybe even go a little brighter. Okay. Nope, too bright. Sometimes I overdo these things. Let's try that. Still too bright. A little bit lower. Okay, there we go. Yeah, color that in roughly. And I feel like once we've got this will really differentiate these leaves and kind of have them sitting um, on top of the bird form a little stronger than what they were already. There we go. Um, in addition to that, these areas right here, right here, right here, you kind of lose the end of those lines a little bit amongst this stuff. If it was actually tattooed, maybe not as much, because that blue might end up being a little bit lighter, but I would encourage you to cap the ends of those leaves in like a less tapered kind of manner. Um, Let me pull up that green and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. If you were to take that and then let's pull in black here and allow that to have back to that green. Something like that, where it's like just kind of a slightly blunter edge. Um, Even not taking that, like we had, like not taking that line all the way to the end, um, kind of removes that as well. Where you really get the entire form of those leaves as that overlaps with the bird. And then the tail feathers, I had them, oh yeah, just the base of the tail feathers in this area, I don't feel like you need that black either. Again, that's one of those things. This area is kind of swooping forward, and that fights against that. It also makes it just seem like it's too like it's too far set back. Like I get that there's an overlap there with the tail feathers, like the initial tail feathers, the blue ones, but it makes it seem like it's too much. So something like that. Again, just to reiterate, like whenever you have doing traditional, like when you have all these bold lines, especially in a piece as dense as this, you really honestly don't have to use all that much black because the lines that are in the piece are the black itself. So that ends up taking up a lot of the need for the black within the piece. Because the rule of thumb a lot of us get taught, especially those of us that do traditional, is like a piece should have about a third black, a third color, and a third open skin. The thing to keep in mind is whenever you're talking about the black, that's including the lines. So the more lines that you have, the closer that is to carrying a third of the entire piece. The lines themselves are that's probably already a third of the black without having any other black in the piece. So you can be very sparing as far as like the way that you use black. I think it works though with the way that you've done it. Um, Having a little bit of black towards the base of these blue feathers works within this, but you don't have to have those there. Um, this area too, you could get away with just allowing that red to be flat. I actually kind of like that a little bit better. Um, Not shading down this, but just continuing, just half filling each of these little feathers in with red as you come down this way, because it does allow this form to sit in front of that back wing a little stronger than what it was doing previously. And we still read it as kind of tapering down, it doesn't mess with the form to where it like where you don't, you can't tell that it's like receding. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much all that I have to say about that piece. I mean, this was a strong piece from the get-go, and we're just kind of tightening up some stuff to make it just that much better. Um, oh, you know what else? I would say I think this ends up being a little bit more dynamic if we extend those down just a little bit like that. Okay, I'm gonna stick with that. That's great. So just to take a look, we go from that with my changes, it turns into that. So, like I said, not a huge difference. Piece is great. All right, so the next one is super fun. I got this rad wizard going on here. This is a very fun design. It's got a cool flow to it. You got this nice kind of, got this real nice kind of S curve we got going on here. Let me make that real fat. You'll see that. And you have this nice kind of counterbalance going on here. Let's put some thought into this composition. All these diagonal lines that we have going on as well, all that stuff gives, like, it gets across movement super well. This piece does that really well. This yellow to pink transition in here is really cool. I'm going to steal that and use that in some tattoos of my own, I think. I love these. I love the choice to make these clouds pink. I think that that's super cool. This green here, I don't think you really need. It's not really anywhere else in the piece, and I think it throws off the color scheme a little bit. What I think would balance out your colors a little bit in this would be to take that green and instead do that this same blue that you had going on in your crystal ball. And you just put that blue right up against the yellow. What's using a harsh blue against a yellow like that is also a very 70s-ish kind of thing to do with traditional work, I feel like. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. I would say I kind of lose a little bit of form in the hair. Um, I would probably shade from the top of the hair, kind of shade down some. Maybe a little bit less as it gets right in there, but do that so we get a little bit more form to that. Um, and then somewhere in it, it feels like it needs, there's a lot of similar things going on with both the hair and the robe, where they don't really play against each other. Like they kind of read as the same thing. I can't really tell if you've intentionally done like a mixed gray in the robe and then didn't do it in him. Um, if I was to tattoo this, I'd do it one of a couple different ways. One way that I would do it is I would do the hair just gray wash shaded, like black and gray wash. The other way that I might go about it is, I would do the hair in just gray wash and then do the robe in like some kind of gray alternate. So I would use like Eternal Smoke is a real common one that people use, which is like a bluish purple, but it's muted. So it reads as a gray, but it's kind of a more dynamic color than gray is. And it would set off against the beard being something different while still establishing them both as gray forms. The other thing that I'd possibly do is kind of have the beard, um, keep the beard pretty similar to what it is, gray wash, like if you didn't want to get into using like a purple. Um, and then push the cloak with far kind of harder black. And we'll just show that real quick. This isn't necessarily exactly the way that I would shade this form using the black, because I'm doing this quickly and not really thinking this 100% out. So there might be some slight variances, but this if I was to do it myself, but this kind of gets the point across. So yeah, this way the cloak all in all becomes a much darker form, and then that kind of allows the beard such to exist, um, beard and hair and everything like that, and have that genuinely read as gray. Um, so just some thoughts when it comes to that. Uh, oh yeah, this wavy sleeve you got going on here. The one thing with it, here, let me do this so you can see this a little better. The one thing with this is that's the only thing in this piece that is not matching um, the direction that everything else is kind of going. Um, Aside from this too, but you could kind of get away with that because of the fact you're kind of tapering that in to not get excessive with the form. Um, but let's take this real quick. So yeah, by moving that angle upward, and that would probably have a little more graceful of a transition there. There, then we end up with something that ends up um, kind of keeping with the whole form that you have going on throughout the entire piece. Um, in addition to that, I mean, like I said, you could probably kind of tape that down a little bit more like this, give it a little bit more of a swiddle instead of having this little guy right there. Or you could do the opposite way too. If you still wanted to like keep that little form really close to it, you could have that come out like that instead, and then lose that. Um, okay, so then the last thing that I could really think of within it, that would be a kind of a cool thing is so you have you have one area within the entire piece that actually has some, well, two that have like some textural effects on it. Everything else for the most part is flat. Um, you have this area that's textured, and you have all of his hair that's textured. I feel like you could do something cool with the crystal ball. Um, just a little texture kind of on the left side. Uh, so if we were to take just this, you could just end up doing some blue dots. I'm a big fan of doing this kind of stuff within a tattoo because I've seen this stuff healed, and I've seen this stuff healed over a decade now. And doing colored dots with like a traditional seven liner or something like that ends up healing super well and ages super well. It's, it ends up looking really nice. And so yeah, that's quick, but you get the idea. I think that looks good, especially like shrinking that down. You still kind of get how that's a different texture from everything else that's going on in the piece. And also makes that a little bit more of a focal point too, which is cool. Um, so yeah, that's everything that I have to say about this piece. Again, super cool. I appreciate both of these pieces quite a bit, and like I said, I appreciate that you gave me fully fleshed out designs that weren't on skin yet. If you want to kind of apply these and kind of redo them and make changes, that'd be really awesome to see. Same thing for any of y'all that I do these kinds of critiques with. So let me Oh, you know what? I did want to mention one other thing. Something that I really like about this piece is the way that you approached this area of negative space within here. How you shaded that down, left kind of a open skin highlight around that, pulled that and made that quite a bit lighter when it actually came into this area. That's a really smart approach to this. It's a really good way to tackle that little area of dead space. So kudos to you. And that's it for this one. Thank you so much. Take care, you guys. I'll see you again the next time.